Okay. Good evening. Hello, everyone. We're so excited to have you here with us tonight. Thank you for your patience as I was trying to get all the stuff on the screen. We want to thank you all for joining us here at TPS tonight. My name is Jennings Sheffield, and we're really excited to welcome Oliver Klink with us for our 9th edition of TPS Talks. We're going to have a Q&A at the end of Oliver's talk, so if you would like to hold your questions until then, but if you feel like you're me and you might forget your question, then go ahead and put it in the chat and I can read it to Oliver after he finishes his talk. Also, we would like to remind you that we have a few of Oliver's prints left through our print program at TPS. So you can purchase this at our website at www.texasphoto.org, and I'll put that link in the chat as well. So I'd like to start with a little bit about Oliver. I first met Oliver back in 2019 at Mary Virginia Swanson's masterclass out in Arizona. And at that time, he was working on his book, Cultures in Translation. I was immediately impressed with our Oliver and his knowledge of processes and this new printing techniques that he was talking to me about, as well as the beautiful images that he was capturing for that book. Oliver's work has been exhibited internationally and featured in National Geographic, Black and White Magazine, Days of Japan, Popular Photography Magazine, and many, many other publications and media, too many to list tonight. In 2019, his book, Cultures in Translation, won 9 awards for Best Photography Book, and he was selected for Critical Mass Top 50. He won the Spotlight Award by Black and White Magazine and was Black and White Photographer of the Year for Doho Magazine. Oliver is an award-winning fine art photographer whose work explores the complexity of our world through light, culture, and motion. His studies in physics and photography have deeply shaped his visual language, blending scientific precision with emotional depth. Tonight, he'll present Poetry in Motion, a stunning body of work that captures the soulful bond between humans and horses. Through breathtaking imagery and lyrical storytelling, Oliver reveals how these animals mirror our own grace, vulnerability, and strength. His photographs unfold like verses, inviting us to see beyond the surface into a quiet, powerful dialogue. So please, please, please help me in welcoming Oliver Klink.
Thank you. Thanks, Jennings. So welcome everybody. As Jennings mentioned, I've been doing photography for quite a while. I did have a career before photography, where I worked in high tech, and about 20 years ago, I was able to jump ship and do photography full time. So when I studied photography, I thought that it was very, very easy. I thought I said I would get a camera. I got the best camera. I was shooting medium format, like digital medium format, Hasselblad. I had big printers. And I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to look at what other people do and I'm going to copy what they do and I'm going to make it much better. So that lasted a very, very short while because I felt there that I didn't really have a voice, that I was just basically a copycat of what everybody were doing. And then it took me probably about 2 years to just realize that I wanted to say something with my photography. And then the first thing that I did is I traveled with my in-laws. My wife is American Chinese to China in the early 2000, and my father-in-law told me that is in 2011, right? So in 2001, there is a Chinese proverb that says, "When you cross the river, you need to feel the pebble under your feet." So he felt that in 2001 that the China world was already growing way way too fast. So the first book that I published in 2019 was about the Asia world and how they had coped with that massive growth that we know about. And that's the book was called Cultures in Transition. Won 9 award, as Jennings mentioned, because of the printing technique that I had. and then the design of the book. So I'll give you a few idea of what the images were in that book. So this one was taken in Bhutan. I had one trip that I organized with a friend in Bhutan, and I was fascinated by that facade. The presentation tonight is the start of my North America book event tour, where I'm going to travel from California across the middle of the states all the way to Newfoundland, Eastern Canada. And then afterward, I'm going to take it from Quebec and then traversing Canada to go to the most northern route that I can find to travel across Canada, all the way to the Dempster Highway. And then from the Dempster Highway, I'm going to make my way back through Alaska, the northern west coast, like Washington, Oregon, and California. Am I expecting that that tour is going to last about probably about 2.5 months to about 3 months? So my guess about 50, close to about 40,000 miles that I'm going to drive. So that's kind of the idea. So as I mentioned there, right, the tour is about my new book, Poetry in Motion. But in 2019, I did publish a book that was called Cultures in Transition, that won 9 awards. And then the book was about the spiritual guiding light that people had in Asian country, and how the progress of the modern world had basically shattered their spiritual guiding light. The family in Asia are very tight, where grandparents typically participate in the raising of the grandkids and so on. But what had really changed is the parents, the middle generation, had to leave the small villages to work in the big cities like the Foxconn that we know, where they make the Apple phone and all that stuff. So the project was a black and white project, well received because of the quality of the printing, both of the book and the technique that I use that's called pisography, where I mix my own ink to print my images. Um, what really people gathered there was the quality of light that I had basically, that I was able to capture on those images. When this book was done, I'd already started working on a new project about horses. So, why would you say that I would work on horses after working on the spiritual guiding light of humans? When I read about horses, is if I look at it, the reason I'm able to travel these days, and then that people do discover so much of the world, is the horses was the start of everything. With horses, people were able to travel longer distance. They were able to basically discover the world. And then, if I look at it, in the eyes of a horse, we see our own emotion reflected back at us, a mirror of the soul. So the first image that I actually took that actually made sense to me was this image. This was photographed in Turkey. And if you know a little bit about the history of the horses, in southern France, the horses were discovered in caves where they had basically all those petroglyphs of horses. So I thought that was really an appropriate pictures to basically start the book. Those caves also are very historical, because where that's where Christianity started, or that's in the world of Turkey, Cappadocia, where Christians were hiding in those caves. And now horses basically use those caves to basically protect themselves. So when I looked at the quality of light that I had in my previous book, that's what I was also after. But is it took me quite a while again. That's close to about a 10-year project to basically put that book together. So if I look at the overall, I have probably about 160,000 images that I took of horses in 12 different countries. And then along the way, I met people that actually told me what they thought and then how they connect with horses. Like, for example, Jennifer here, if I were to say one word about horses, it would be dreams. There is hardly a single little girl out there who does not dream of owning or riding a horse, or riding a magical horse. So that was basically the way the book got designed, is by theme instead of being chronological or location based. So here's basically Jennifer riding a horse, or that's a gypsy vanner, and you can see, even if it's a the color work on for this project, there is really the light and the connectivity that I'm basically looking for with the other people. Um, is I wish I could show you all the behind the scene of what happened with the with an image that I take. But like this one, if you're a horse lover, if you're basically familiar with horses, you know that horses, they love straw hats. So you should have seen that little girl that got their hat totally chewed by the horse, and then the horse was really, really smart. As soon as he got the hat, we knew that he knew that we wanted to photograph the little girl, and he just run away. So you can see I'm there. There's an opening, and suddenly the horse is running away with the hat. So that's kind of what I've experienced with horses. Is they are really, really smart. Is everybody dream, as I said, that Jenny said, of owning basically those horses. So photographing in 12 different countries bring different challenges when you look at the horses. This is a little boy in Mongolia that is basically rounding up horses. You're talking, he was running up by himself about 50 horses, just by himself there. India, what was really interesting, this little girl had never ridden a horse before, and then when I asked her if she wanted to be photographed with a horse, she was so passionate, said, "Anything you want is I'm going to climb on that horse." Um, this little boy, some little tricks about how do you get the horse to basically bond with the people. Food is usually a really interesting part. So I had basically put some nibbles right in between his legs and then in his hand. And the little boy, interesting enough, basically gave food with his hand, but he didn't put his hand really flat. So the horse just basically bit his finger. So if you look closely, he has a little bandage right there on his finger, and then because the horse basically chew his finger, but he's a boy, so he didn't want to cry because his sister was there, right? So he's there, and then at one point he had to cry, right? So about half an hour later, I asked the little boy, I said, "Do you want to be photographed with a horse?" And surprising enough, he picked exactly the same horse that bit his hand there. That's the so you see there is that connection that I could find between people and horses. Again, the dream that I photographed in Northern California. This is a horse or breed of horse that you're going to see a little bit more during the show. It's called a Lusitano. So Lusitanos are really known for very, very smart horses, very smart, and you'll see how and where I photographed them. So I am a fan of really panels so that you see the expand of what horse and then the motion. So this is from a camera perspective. You need to figure out what is the speed that you want to photograph those horses. And there's a lot of trial and errors. Yeah, lots of trial and errors when you do this stuff. So like another person told me, while in their presence, it is the closest we will ever get to touching the essence of freedom. So Lisa Calder, she's a horse whisperer. And then when she is in presence of horses that you're going to see, she tries to basically get the horse to feel comfortable with someone on their back. Because obviously horses do not want people on their back for whatever reason there. Um, but I really learned a lot about how you basically calm down horses. And you're going to see that trend there where with horses is they are really smart, but I do feel that there is a human connection when you see all those animals. Um, this was in southern Spain, and people ask me, I said, "How do you get the horse to basically run out of the water like this, right?" Um, And then this is a horse that is actually used to the water. This is the Atlantic. The only thing I asked the trainer is said, can you make sure your horse start to run when there is a big wave coming behind him? And the horse, the first thing he wanted to do is to get to shore when he saw those big waves. But really, really impressive. Those are called PREs, the Pure Race España. And then really talking about freedom, those are wild horses in Wyoming. That's the mountain that they have. It's really the typical American horse, the Mustang. And what is really interesting with by photographing the Mustang is you need a lot of patience. I spent about 3 weeks, and then that's probably the least productive that I have found that I was with those horses because a lot of the part is to find them. And then they know absolutely when you want to photograph them that they are going to hide somewhere. And it's about gaining their trust if you want to photograph them. Um, so two young stallion there that typically is what's happening with when you have two herd of horses. One, a younger the Mustang on the right hand side, is trying to steal the mare of the other herd. Again, I like kind of that feel of the freedom what you get with the horses. That was photographed in one of the 12 countries, Turkey, and then India has a special breed of horses. It's called the Marwari horse. And then you're going to see in subsequent that's a little bit more obvious. Their ears are pointing inwards. Um, so uh, is I found that basically India had they cherished the horse so much that they are disallowing the export of those horses. So they are very difficult to photograph anywhere but in India, those Marwari horses. Um, I never this is another herd of wild Mustang in the Eastern Sierra in California. And there is a lot of controversies about where do horses and how many horses could live on BLM land. Um, I feel that I have seen other countries how they basically manage their horses. And then it's just a matter of the conflict between the rancher, the horses, and the water source that is always at the base of this conflict. And again, running horse, you're going to see this trend that at the end of each chapter there, I do have kind of those grand panels that give you a sense of the freedom and then how you lead to the next chapter. So Ron, who I met in Montana, but he's from Wyoming, horses are eternal, symbols of strength, loyalty, and endurance, having carried warriors into battle as steadfast companion. So, can you plan every shoot? It's almost impossible to plan every shoot. But I was fortunate that I was at the right time in Montana to photograph the reenactment of the little bighorn battle. Very interesting. It's one of the battle that had the reenactment the most number of horses. There were probably close to 100 horses in the reenactment there, and that's actually running with his horse there. Um, Rodeo in your state, I think that it's kind of a famous for rodeos. Challenging to photograph, and then I photograph both rodeos, purebred horses, and I can see a very very different culture between all those type of horse lovers. Again, I think the if I go back to the caves there that I show you the first image, this was very very intense to photograph those horses. And then the sign for me that the horse could feel a little threatened is with the position of the ears, because there it feels a little bit cluster in those caves. So it takes a little bit of patience to basically get them in those locations there. This is Navajo land. Uh, a very very interesting shoot with the people that worship their land and then worship horses. That's next to Monument Valley, a valley parallel to Monument Valley. Um, I loved photographing the Navajo Indian, but they are very proud. And then I was very sensitive that as a white guy, is I have basically very little right to photograph them. So I wanted to make sure that they were treated really well and didn't feel abused or by the white person again. Um, Other countries like India, you can feel that people of all age are going to take care of horses. And then you can see like that horse that we just saw. That's basically again a Marvari horse. A little bit more obvious with the ears, what's happening. Um, if you're not a horse lover, this is very very challenging to basically get the horse to rear. Um, More about the horses in different season that I photograph. I was really playing, as I mentioned, the battles there. To me, battle was always flags. Flags are really, really important when you're in battles, and that's the elements that I wanted to capture in those images. So if I look at Nuri, became a really, really good friend in Turkey. The journey that began with my grandfather gifting me a horse at the age of 10 has grown into a commitment to caring for nearly 100 horses and safeguarding the Yilki horse, which is a Turkish local horse, often called the Mustang of Anatolia. So, as we know, horses were very, very useful in the past for traveling, for agriculture, and they all got replaced pretty much by vehicles, by modern vehicles there. But here's an example in Spain where the way they manage the horses, it's in Galicia region in northern Spain. They actually round up wild horses once a year to basically trim the mane and tail and vaccinating them against mites. So those horses are not traumatized like they might be when you round them up with helicopter and so on. And then it's a good way for the local to still basically be in touch with the environment where the horses live. They don't use any motorized vehicles. Everything is done on foot. And then people basically round them up. They put them in a very unique amphitheater that is an old amphitheater, and then they basically vaccinate them and release them about a day later. um, Obviously when you have those horses that you start to round up, or the yilki horses, so the yilki horses, those are yilki horses in Turkey. The way they do it is they are semi-wild. So they feed them at night, so the horses come back, and then people can have the picture taken with horses, and then after they release them during the day. You might see a person in this image. So that's when in Spain, when they have all those wild horses, they need to pin the horse down to the ground and then eventually or vaccinate them. So I was there. It was a 3 day event, and in Spanish, the people told me there. They said, "Oh, it gets much much better on day two and day three." So day two, I started to see people coming, and they had a bunch of bandage. And day three, I don't think there were anybody left because they were all trampled by the horses. You can imagine about 100 horses in that antique theater amphitheater is just mixing and then getting the main trimmed. So this also the Yilki horse. Um, when I photograph, I always try to add the environment. the environment to me is really, really important. And I felt there that the horses were at ease in their environment because it's always water and food that basically get the horse to survive. And again, the Yilki horses in front of the highest peak in Turkey. That's in kind of a center of Turkey that I where I photographed. In a horse, ancient people saw an animal so beautiful it could only have come from the spirit world. So swift, it moved as if it could fly. So Susan Friedman is a photographer who I met in Spain, and then we photographed together. And this is the in Cordova, southern Spain, Andalusia, where they train basically Olympic horses. So this is a horse that you could potentially have seen in the Olympics. And what was interesting with those horses is they don't have any free time. So every time you release them for like what's called liberty, is you have about 30 seconds to photograph them before they sniff everything that is in the arena. So you imagine you have one horse that comes loose there, and then you have to basically capture the essence of that horse in about less than 30 seconds. Those are typical homes in southern Spain, there in the Andalusia region. Um, uh, was a little bit outside of my comfort zone to photograph a portrait of horses, but I do like this image because I just feel the soul of that horse. I'm more kind of an action guy there, where I want the horses to be who they are. This is another shoot that I did towards the end of the project. I had seen classical concert with all those candles, and I said, do you know what it is? The music is so beautiful in those classical concert that the horse is would be majestic in those candles. And it took me about a week to train the horses and about 1,000 candles that I studied with, and ended up with almost none. Is because they were all trampled by the horse, but became a magnificent shoot with those horses on how to get those horse or to not be scared of something that they are not used to. Um, and then here, horses in southern France. People ask me, said, how is that possible to get an image like this? You always have to be there at the right time because there is time of the day where horses want to go back to the barn, and that was the time of the day. Being a cowboy isn't about the boots and cowboy hat. It is about connection, from the horses we ride to the cattle we run, and to the river that keeps life flowing through us all, one generation to the next. So I met these cowboys in New Mexico. And I was a little down because I had some difficult time photographing basically rodeos where I was not allowed or the light was not good. Nothing was really, really working until I saw those cowboys. And then I had to be in Louisiana about 3 days later, but those guys told me we're going to have a roundup. And then for them, rounding up is basically where the entire family gets together. And really, when I took these pictures, it was really the bond that I felt between the horses, between all this family, that basically is able to protect the land in our deep New Mexico because of the horses and the cattle that they have. So again, is Navajo land, where I was able to photograph the essence of what it means to be really in tune with the horses. A typical image with what I like when I photograph is the primary subject, secondary subject, and tertiary subject. So we know here the primary subject are the horses. In Navajo land, again, you see a lot of the dogs there. So I felt that the secondary subject was really, really important there. And the tertiary subject to me there is the atmosphere of the image. A tertiary subject could be more than just an object. It could be a feel of the image, like the feel that you have about the light. So again, there, right, is same people that we photographed, took them about a day to round up. They rounded up about 500 cattle that day, which was very unique for me because I'd never seen a roundup that big, that large. So let me play a video now, and then you can listen to what people are saying about the book.
You really want a book, because the book offers you everything. It offers you the incredible smell of the paper and the ink and the feeling of the paper and the autograph of the author. It offers you essays and Oliver Klink's magnificent photography, the study of horses that has gone on for years, and the stories of the horses' humans. Because this is a book not just about horses, but about the spiritual relationship between humans and horses. And of course, horses just experiencing the joy of being alive by themselves. Magnificent portraiture. Life. But then the working relationship between ranchers and horses. Oh, the paper feels so good. The ink smells so good. Wow. This sure beats the internet. And
So when you put a book together, is there's many consideration that you have to go through. And then at my house, I own over 1,500 books. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how do I go about making a book. And then I have basically two books that I made, Culture in Transition and Poetry in Motion, that we're looking at right now. So the more books you have, the more inspiration that you're going to get. And the inspiration is about the size of the book, the quality of the paper, the ink, the design, the layout, everything that can inspire you. When I did research about horse book, um, if you go to Barnes and Nobles or any of those big bookstores, is you always have a book on the shelf that is about the horses. And then I felt that the book about the horses, they were very documentary, which is not who I am, right? I'm not there to document horses. So the first consideration that I had, I said, I'm so in awe with the horses because they are so big and they have a presence. So that I wanted to do a size of the book that would have a presence and that would be very unique. So when you do this, is images that you sequence become really important. So that's typically the way I sequence images. I put hundreds of images on the floor and then basically pick and choose, and I work with an editor. And then when I work with an editor, that's the way we do it. We just do actual mock-ups. We do not like to do anything that is electronic. So we do flip books, we just change images, and we play on the rhythm of the book there. If you have a chance if you have a chance to own basically Poetry in Motion, is you're going to see the book has a rhythm, and the rhythm was on purpose because to me that was the sound of the horse that was really, really important in that book. And you can feel the sound when you go through the book. So now when you have basically done all the design, to give you a sense there, right, is to get from the time I start or basically thinking about a book to the point where I go on press, this is about a 2 year process. By the time I gather all the images for that book, I had about 160,000 images. By the time you look at the concept, you do a lot of writing for the book, and eventually when you're ready, you go on press. So I'm a pretty good printmaker is, but when you go on press, this is a different ball game. So the machine that you see behind there, that's a press, that's a 7 color press. So typically you have paper on the right hand side, a huge ream of paper that go through rolls of ink, and then they just spit on the left hand side. The fellow that you have there, he is basically checking that every sheet that comes out is properly calibrated, which is at the bottom. So how does an image is printed? So you print your images negative on, and you split by colors depending on how many colors you use to print your book. And then every color has a plate, which is you can see, and then the plate is actually put in that machine. In that case, I use a 10 color machines, and then you will see when the image comes out, you have basically you compare the recipe that you have in the machine, which is a screen on the back, with the image, and you keep scanning it to make sure that the ink is at the right temperature, that you have the proper amount of ink in the rollers. And then you see the book that I have in the front, that was my mock-up book that I had printed, and you try to match up with the printing that you do. Now, it's going to be really, really loud, but that's basically what you have when you're on press for about 1 week. So let me play the video so that you get the sense of being on press. So what you see here is each palette is called one signature. So a signature is how many images you're going to actually put on a page. And in my case, I had basically 4 images because of the size of the book. So that brings again is a lot of calculation on how big can you make a book because of the size of the paper. But what is really important when you're on press, and the reason I go on press, is to squeeze every drop of ink so that we get the best quality possible on the print. And it's very, very challenging because you have to be on your A game against all those people that are professional. That's what they do day in, day out. But you are the person that makes the final decision if the printing is according to your taste and to the quality that you want. most of the photography book, the artist does not go on press because it is very, very challenging and they feel that they cannot add any value. To me, that's basically the very, very critical part of making a book is to be on press and then just see like a baby just coming to life. So on this book, what I decided is to sign the book on press. So my book was published at 750 copies. So it took me 1 day to actually sign all the copies of that book. And then here you have again the book now that the signature, each signature that are ready to go to the bindery. So the bindery, it's usually there's an expression, right? You judge a book by its cover. So the cover became really, really critical for me. And then I wanted to give, as it's the title is Poetry in Motion, the feel that it was very poetic. And then I needed to find a material that was kind of a more artistry, that it was not the glossy material or the sleeve that you normally use for books. So that brought on many, many challenges. Number one is the book. If you look at the book, it's a 16 inches wide book and then 13 inch, about 12.6 inches tall. So the hinging on the book is done on the short side. So now I'm going to show you what it actually took to basically bind that book.
In order to reinforce the hinge, we are putting an additional glue by hand. So the rigidity of the cover will be more. So also the stability of the book shape will be much better. So everything, as you can see, is by hand. And afterwards, after this operation, because the first hinge is formed by the machine, we are going to do the additional hinge pressure with this machine.
So what you can see is the complexity of making books that are out of the usual there, right? Typically a book size is about an 8 by 10. As soon as you go over 12 inches, everything becomes really, really manual, a manual process. Uh, I'm really, really glad that I'd worked with the bindery before for the previous book, and then that they were willing to go the extra mile to basically make this incredible cover. And really it shows, and I'm going to show you why it's such an incredible cover. So then, when you make a book, if you're part of a big publishing house, they just warehouse for you. Is again, I everybody has limited budget to make books, and I spend all my budget on making the book. So it means that all the books are delivered to my house, and then I do the distribution myself. As I said, now I'm on a book tour, right? When I'm going to basically sell my book. So now I'll give you an idea of what it means when the books arrive at my studio. So people are asking me, I said, when are you going to make the next images in your studio? as soon as I basically have sold all the horse book, all the poetry in motion. The but really what it shows, the book is has already won two awards, and then one for the best cover, the large format, as I said, an extraordinary cover image married with incredible design and production, stand out in every way, which harkens back to the elegance of fine art book publishing. And then it won the second book award for any book that was independently published in 2024. So competing against novel, children's book, is about cooking books. So you can see the quality of what the team at True North Edition, Kate Yordle and Gear Yordle, and myself has basically put together with the printing at Longo and then the binary at Legatoria. So, moving on to the book again, each journey is a dance of unity and wonder, a testament to the timeless connection between horses and rider. So, those were basically two women, Mubera. She's also from Turkey. And then incredible riders. I love that image because of the historical portion. Riding horses where Christianity was formed became a delight. I've traveled also to Romania. I was right at the border of Ukraine when I basically took this image, and it was over Christmas where people are really proud to basically show their spirit and their religion. Again, deep into Turkey territory. Was right at the border of Syria. I was about maybe 20 kilometers from Syria at that point, and I was right after they had the big earthquake. Uh, Visited villages that are probably about 500 years old. Stone, basically no paved road. People still use horses, extensively horses or mule to basically deliver the goods. Um, is What was interesting is I watch a lot of movies, and then I always loved Indiana Jones, the movie Indiana Jones. And when I met these two people in Turkey, I said, "Do you know about Indiana Jones?" They said, "Oh yes, yes, yes." So that was a reenactment we were trying to give. Indonesia, in front of the one of the largest still active volcano, the Bromo volcano. Same place where you have the travelers with the horses around the volcano. And again, is the end of the chapter with this grand expand. Imagine a picture like this in a book that would be about over 30-inch wide there. Supernatural, not the Marvel kind. Horses are prey animals and we're predators. We strive to rise above those natural behaviors which make it supernatural. And I think Christina again, it's a is a horse whisperer. She takes care of horses that are usually trouble horses, and then the bond that she can create. And then I'll tell you in a little bit how those images basically came about. This is the holy festival with basically Shiva and a horse in India. This is in your state in Dallas, one of the Renaissance show that they have. The white horse is the same horse that I've photographed in Spain, called the PRE. The sheriffs. This guy he likes to be photographed, but he'd always want to be photographed in the same fashion as a dominant. So I had the idea. I said, "Oh, what about running horses around him there, right?" And then as photographer, you can imagine the complexity of getting basically motion blur with one guy that needs to stand still in the middle. The centaur, if you know the story of the centaurs, the centauress there that was photographed in southern France. And then I traveled to many islands. Uh, One here is Easter Island. What happened usually when people were traveling in ancient time to most recent time, when their ship basically wrecked, the first item that was left were typically horses. So you have horses in, for example, Newfoundland, where I'm going over the summer there to photograph more horses. And then here on the Easter Island, I really, really like that image because of the history of the Rapa Nui. The Rapa Nui is the mohai, the stone figures that you have, and then the gentleman that you see in the front of the image. So again, is took me about 3 weeks to figure out where those wild horses were. Is I had to photograph rock bands and then many many people, so they would actually tell me where I could find the semi-wild horses. Again, an image that I really appreciate because of the historical value of this mohai. A horseman, an eagle hunter, and a nature lover, I experience a profound connection that words cannot fully capture. And I'm going to spare you on the pronunciation of the fellow that I photograph in Mongolia. Um, is again, if you had a chance to watch some of the documentary about the eagle hunters, is I'm way past the festival where they this is actually where they live. And the eagle hunters do hunt in the wintertime because it's much easier to see actually the preys on a white snow versus the dark or the dark background that you have during summertime. Deep snow, temperature in minus probably 30 degrees. If you had asked me, I never saw when I saw that image. There was so much condensation on my viewfinder, but is eventually when I photograph horses, I get the feel of basically what's happening. And then really people ask me, I said, have you been hit by horses? I do believe there that I have such a confidence that the horses can feel it, that I'm not going to hurt them, and then that I can actually position myself in order to get this really the essence of those horses running down there in the snow. This is a crazy festival called the Hola Mahala, where the in Punjab, northern India, where the riders are trying to show their skills in archery and then horse riding. So imagine a football field full of people with horses basically galloping in the middle of it, and then a path that is open as the horse basically approaches you. Again, reenactment in Montana. This is actually Portuguese bullfight where they actually do not kill the bull. You can see the Velcro on the top of the bull that they still practice the same rituals, but the bull is not killed. And then I was mentioning the horses, the Lusitano horse. That's again the Lusitano horse that are really known for being very agile, again, basically charging bulls. Those are southern Camargue horses, southern friend horses. Again, much smaller kind of cattle that you have in Texas. But the people are called they are not called cowboys there. They are called guardians, and that you're probably very familiar to what's happening here, right? It's roping that you can see in Texas and many other places with rodeo. Frisco, my horse, saved my life. He taught me the journey from my head to my heart to my authentic self. For the first time in my life, I felt at peace, or JP Dial for that. So, JP Dial was a very, very successful financial guy. And then at one point in his life, he pretty much lost everything, and he ended up being totally inebriated in a horse pen, and that horse that's called Frisco basically saved his life, and that was basically Frisco. So when I actually photographed him, I really found that bond that he had with the horse. And what was very unique about this image, he actually did not know that I was photographing that because we're on another shoot, and he thought that he was just resting. So again, Frisco and JP uh, is Lisa, who was early on that you saw, that was a horse whisper, and again that candle shoot that I did towards the end. Again, I think as the person that played the video there, they talk about the spirituality between horses and human. I think it's really really effective in this image, and especially as you know that most of India they basically veil themselves there, and now that I can see the face of the person and the horse. This is a really unique image for me because it's a special breed of horse that is only in Switzerland, my homeland, and then that barn that you see was is actually from the 1210. You could see how small the stalls were at that point. So the horses were actually managed by monks, the monks and the priest in Switzerland. So when I went to that stable, I asked a priest if I could photograph him close to the horse, and then today the priests are scared of the horses. So the character that I found is the closest to Jesus that I could find. So here, let me give you another feel of how does an image come about when I photograph.
Hi, my name is Jackson Nichols, and I'd like to talk to you for a minute about Oliver Klink's new book, Poetry in Motion. It's a marvelous coffee table book that highlights photographs of horses from around the world, from the Central Valley of California to Easter Island in the Pacific, from Europe to India to Central Asia. Oliver has captured the cultural environment of the horses he photographs. Well, Oliver is a gifted and creative photographer. To get the final image that he imagines takes a special kind of determination and artistry. I accompanied Oliver on a photo shoot to the Central Valley of California to the Hearst Ranch to photograph Christina Hearst and her beautiful horse Maeve, a white gypsy vanner horse. We set up a rented smoke machine in a corral on the ranch after sunset. Christina was mounted on the horse wearing her wings. While the smoke was enveloping them, Christina's husband was standing just off camera and gave the command to the horse to rear up. After several takes, Oliver was satisfied he got the shot. We made several more photos of different horses before we finally retired past midnight. This is just one example of the commitment that went into making this book. These pages are filled with photographs that will amaze you and warm your heart. Whether a horse fan or just a fan of fine art photography, you must own this book.
So you saw towards the end there, I had basically poetry in motion in brown and then with a lot of text. I felt that this book had done basically a movie. And then you know that at the end of the movie, you get a lot of you get the credits. And that was one way for me to give back to all the people that had helped me. So I'd listed all the people, all the horses, and if you own the book, you can basically look at it, which was a very creative way to give credit to the people that participated in that book. So the images that Jackson was talking about, that was one of the other image. The challenge that I typically have when I photograph the horses, especially motion and smoke, is I do photograph with medium format that is not known for camera that basically track very, very well. But I do like the feel of medium format. And then I'd met a few years back, some people that photograph basically dancers. And then really at one point you don't need burst mode. Is I pretty much shoot single shot because I know when the right moment happens there, right? You get the feel of when the horse leg at the right place, when the rider is basically properly set it in your frame. So the book, if I really look at this book, is feels the pulse of life through these creatures. It's not just about horses, but about humanity, empathy, and the delicate threads that connect us to the natural world. Now, those horses that I photograph is they were in Spain. They were all basically PRE, pure race España, and then running wild, as I mentioned to you, for about 30 seconds. So hopefully you enjoyed the presentation. If you're inclined so, do purchase the book. I do offer some special on the book. And then if you're interested, you can get the QR code. One thing that I'm going to ask you, as I'm actually traveling on Monday, starting the Monday, I'm off to Vegas to present in Vegas. If you could basically order the book so I can ship it before I leave for Vegas. So hopefully that gives you kind of a sense of what the book is about. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask or let me know what you think.
Thank you, Oliver, so much. Thank you for that
You're
wonderful
welcome.